Now to Iran, which has been gripped by weeks of protests over the country's economic crisis. On Tuesday, security forces used tear gas to disperse a sit-in at Tehran's main market, the Grand Bazaar. First protests broke out last month after Iran's currency, the rial, collapsed. Activists say at least 36 people have been killed in the violence as protesters and security forces clash across the country. Amid the unrest, some campaigners on social media have been calling for the return of Iran's last crown prince, who has been in exile since the monarchy was overthrown in 1979. But how much support does Reza Pahlavi have inside Iran?
Long live the Shah. It's a chant that has not been heard on Iranian streets for decades. But during the ongoing protests, it seems to be in vogue again. At least that's what videos circulating on social media suggest. But does that mean Reza Pahlavi, the crown prince and son of the last Shah, is really gaining support inside Iran?
There are some people who do support the return of Reza Pahlavi in Iran, but that number of people in Iran is uncertain. It tends to get magnified by the Iranian diaspora, many of whom are diehard supporters of Reza Pahlavi. And of course, on our social media, we usually hear the voices of the diaspora more than we do of those inside Iran. So calling for his return to the throne, especially given the record of his late father, the Shah, that's something we must be very cautious about.
Reza Pahlavi was born in Tehran as the oldest son of Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi and his wife Farah, and was raised as crown prince, expected to succeed his father. But then the Iranian Revolution happened. Months of mass protests, driven by widespread opposition to his father's authoritarian rule, political repression and corruption. The Pahlavis fled the country. Ayatollah Khomeini returned from his exile in France and the Islamic Republic was formed. That's more than 45 years ago, but monarchists still consider Reza Pahlavi the heir to the Persian throne. Pahlavi himself has been actively campaigning against the Islamic Republic, asking people inside Iran to rise against their oppressors and overthrow the regime. And he has been touring the world, asking for international support. Like in this tweet directed at US President Donald Trump, "I have the plan for a stable transition for Iran and the support of my people to get it done. With your leadership of the free world, we can leave a legacy of lasting peace." But he has always denied he seeks to return to his home country as a ruling monarch.
My only mission in life is to see to it that the Iranian people can ultimately determine their own future in a free and fair election. And the day that the Iranians go to the poll to decide their future, that would be mission accomplished and the end of my political mission in life.
So according to experts, the calls for him that are heard across Iran at the moment could also be fueled by that. The desperate hope for someone who can make the difference and help topple the Islamic Republic.
In the last 3 or 4 similar protests that we've had, there was no clear leader figure, whereas one has emerged. I will say that while some of the protesters may specifically want the return of the monarchy, other protesters are simply calling for his leadership as a transitional figure. So calls for his leadership certainly point to the absence of other alternatives for Iranians, and him emerging as the kind of clear frontrunner in the oppositions.
With most of the opposition inside Iran in prison, Pahlavi might look like the obvious choice as transitional leader. But many Iranians remain cautious. After all, they have not had the best experience when an exiled opposition leader returns to save them.
Let's explore this with international security analyst Shahin Modares. Welcome to DW. What's your assessment of Reza Pahlavi? How popular is he amongst Iranians?
Hello, and thank you for having me. Well, we should look at the facts that we have within Iranian society. The fact is that Reza Pahlavi has a fraction of the society, people who still live within the realm of nostalgia of the monarchy of his father, under the influence that he was not a dictator and it was not an authoritarian system in Iran before the revolution. And hence, they think that the return of monarchy to Iran can change things. Reza Pahlavi has a certain amount of popularity. His followers and the monarchists are stating that his popularity is something between 80 to 85%, which is something that is ridiculous, that cannot be accepted. The truth that we have, based on the only statistical studies institution that we have within the Iranian opposition, which is the Gaman Institute, is that Reza Pahlavi approximately has something around 35% of the Iranian society behind him, which is a very high number. But here's the problem about this 35%. How come he has not been able to topple the Islamic Republic with such a high percentage in the last 46 years? This is the question that we should ask today, because he has not been able to give them political agency and he has not been able to develop any type of political mobilization.
OK, so we'll hold that thought because, of course, these calls have come as these protests, as we see these protests on the streets of Iran, which began after the fall in the value of the rial and, of course, the significant increase in economic suffering. We'll hear from a couple of people in the country and then come back to you.
A week ago, I bought a tray of eggs for 2.2 million rials. Today, I bought one for 3.5 million. Prices of goods like cooking oil and rice have gone up. Sales have dropped off very badly. Last year at this hour, my shop was packed with customers. Now sometimes I wait for an hour before a customer shows up. To be honest, market conditions are not good at all.
So, Shaheen Madaris, people clearly under a lot of economic pressure. The president's call for dialogue. Security forces are still cracking heads. How long do you think the protest will last?
I don't think this series of protests will last long unless something miraculous happens. Something maybe like what we witnessed in Venezuela a few days ago. But here is the thing, the Iranian people are living under catastrophic situation. The Islamic Republic has been delegitimized and it is a rogue state not only within the Middle East but on the international scene. The Iranian people do not want this anymore, but there is a difference here. Every time that the incentive and the trigger of protests has been economy, the Islamic Republic has been able to somehow, in a very brutal way, suppress the protests by killing many people. But after the murder of Jina Amini and the beginning of woman life freedom in Iran, we witnessed another type of protests, something that was bigger than just the economy, something that was aiming at the very heart of the Islamic Republic when it objectifies half of the society. And it went on for years. And even now, even though it has not been successful yet, but it has not terminated as well. And the most important thing that the opposition can do today.
OK, so you're talking about cultural change then. So if not Reza Pahlavi and if not ruled by the theocratic regime, then what? Because it does look like this protest will run out of steam eventually. The theocrats will continue until the next process and the whole thing will just keep limping on.
Well, first of all, let me express that I cannot deny that Reza Pahlavi has a certain amount of followers within the Iranian political sphere. But the big problem is that he has been trying to assume two responsibilities at the same time of being or pretending to be the leader of the transition and as well being the leader of the monarchists, which has a conflict of interest together. Right. The future of Iran is not amongst a duality of Pahlavi or the Islamic Republic of the Ayatollahs. It can be a secular democratic future for a plural society like Iran, where everyone, every Iranian ethnicity is being heard.
OK, good talking to you. Thank you for joining us, Shaheen Madaris.